So that's a great question. And this is where modern Bibles, where they try to defend the reading of the text there, okay? So this is going right along with everything we've been talking about with the modern versions and stuff. So your King James Bible reads, one likened to the Son of God, okay? All the modern translations will read a son, and I'm putting this in all caps just because that's how I like to write when I'm on the board. But understand, this is uppercase in the King James. This is uppercase in the King James. In the modern versions, this is not uppercase. A son of the gods. So lowercase. Yeah, it's lowercase, and there's an S at the end. So this is lowercase, and it's got an S at the end. And the logic is, well, Nebuchadnezzar was a pagan king, therefore how in the world could he know anything about the Son of God? And it was in the Old Testament. Okay, time out. Listen very carefully to me. Number one, I am so sick of this idea that just because there was a pagan king, that meant he was like some kind of idiot that knew nothing about any other culture or any other custom. They try to do the same thing with the Easter argument. Well, Herod wouldn't have known about Easter if Easter was referring to the Passover and resurrection. Why would he care? Well, there's several reasons why you would care. All right? Herod was very well versed in the ways of the Jews and even the Christians after they became, after the Christians started getting popular. These guys were not morons. Okay? These weren't like the inbred kings of Europe. Okay? Yeah, I'm not trying to be ugly, I'm being honest. The kings of Europe and the queens of Europe, there was, especially back in like the 1700s, there was bad problems. They came out with a lot of, there was, what was it? Was it which king was it? One of the King Georges or something? I mean, he was bad messed up because of incest. Okay, so we're not talking about a bunch of inbred kings of Europe. We're talking about men, even though they were pagan, would have been highly intelligent. They would have been very familiar with customs. They would have known a lot of things about different. And by the way, Daniel, remember what Nebuchadnezzar did? Daniel took Nebuchadnezzar took Daniel and all those Jewish boys, ones that were highly intelligent, that were good looking. I mean, as close to me as you can imagine, right? And yeah. Some of y'all knew that was coming. But he took all these guys, right, and began to raise them up to be trained so that he wanted to surround himself with those kind of people. And so understand, Nebuchadnezzar was not a moron. By the way, by reading Nebuchadnezzar's accounts, Nebuchadnezzar would have known a lot about the Jews. Okay? So this idea that Nebuchadnezzar would have known nothing about Jesus Christ is ridiculous. Read all the accounts of Nebuchadnezzar and how much he knew and how much he recognized the God of Israel. I don't know. Of course, he was a Gentile king in the Old Testament, so all that stuff works differently. I'm not quite positive if we won't see Nebuchadnezzar in heaven. I'm just being honest. Read some of the stuff he said about the Lord. He said a lot of things about the Lord. Okay, so how about this one? You say, well, it was in the Old Testament. How could they have known about Jesus? The Son of God, capital S, is mentioned 3 times in the Old Testament. One of the times here in Daniel chapter number 9. Or Daniel chapter number 3. So notice, Psalm chapter 2, kiss the Son lest he be angry. That's Psalm 2, capital S. And then I think I may have misspoke just now. Proverbs 30 mentions the Son, but it's not capitalized. Proverbs 30 talks about the Lord. It says, what is his name and what is his son's name, if thou canst tell. It's not capitalized there, so pardon me. But it's capitalized in Psalm 2, and then we read it. So, yeah, there are 2 mentions of the Son of God in the Old Testament, apart from what Nebuchadnezzar said. So this idea that Nebuchadnezzar wouldn't have known and couldn't have known, and he's, the idea is he's just some drunk pagan king that's just sitting around eating a lamb chop all the time, holding a glass of wine. It's not true. Nebuchadnezzar was a military genius that conquered basically all the known world at that time. Okay? He was no dummy. So does that answer your question? So when he looks over and sees this quote-unquote apparition, which we call a theophany, a pre-existent or pre-incarnate form of Jesus Christ, he knew exactly what he was talking about when he said, I see one like unto the Son of God. Does that answer your question? Okay.